Okay, good morning, good evening, or good night. Today we will discuss the cultural studies topic that is related to film. So, as you have already known, that cultural studies refers to any popular product, and film definitely part of the popular product in our contemporary world. So, today we will discuss how you can discuss cultural studies through film. So to refresh your memory, I would start with the introduction of the cultural studies itself. Um, by definition, uh, cultural studies is a sophisticated analysis of cultural artifacts that requires a close examination of five basic elements, which together constitute the circuit of culture. So this topic has been discussed in first or and second meetings, I believe. So the requirements for doing culture studies is to at least discuss one of the five basic elements, which are representation, identity, production, consumption, and regulation. So the same with other cultural artifacts. When you discuss cultural studies in film, you have to relate at least one elements of the circuit of cultures in your analysis. And so this is still about the five basic elements of the circuit of culture. As you can see that all five are interrelated to each other because they are inseparable when we talk about cultural studies. But it doesn't mean that you have to discuss all. It is possible you discuss all aspects or all elements in a film, but it will be too much because for your level, you can start with just one or two elements. So when we talk about cultural studies in film, uh, it can be defined as an interdisciplinary field, in which film is studied in relation to the cultural values and meanings established in the representations of a film's characters, plots, and other elements. And cultural studies engage various values, identities, and norms in culture relating to social class, gender, and ethnicity in the film. So it's a very wide and broad there are wide and broad possibilities for you to discuss any of these aspects that probably the most prominent in any film. So let's say you discuss a film that has a very strong aspect of ethnicity, then probably that is the topic that you have discussed. Representation of ethnicity and how the film represented. Does it agree with the mainstream belief of certain ethnicities and or such and such? So what we do when we discuss or analyze cultural studies or analyze film using cultural studies is to locate the relation of culture and power. So cultural study basically talk about this relationship between the culture and power, how culture creates power or the other way around, how power create culture. So this study states that cultural forms are inherently used to shape values, beliefs, habits, tastes, and behaviors that play out as the focus of media and film. Essentially, cultural studies in film view culture as the constant interaction of culture and power. Maybe if you follow the trend today, perhaps you have heard about the movie Pesta Babi that has been previously has been screened from campus to campus, from places to places, because they are afraid of the government will shut the screening down. But then eventually the film has been released in YouTube. And well, that is the kind of movies that can be discussed through the analysis of relation between power and culture, because there are a lot of symbolism in that movies, and how people represent, or the filmmakers represent, or visualize Papua, from a different point of view. The film introduced us a different perspective of what happened in Papua in relation to power, and also the government, and how cultures in that sense, beliefs, and also local wisdom try to negotiate, try to challenge the power through lots of symbolic action, and also using lots of symbols. So that is one example of how constant interaction of culture and power is seen through the movie. And by a definition, or based on history, cultural studies analysis in a film is originated from various approaches to film study that had come up earlier. So it doesn't mean that if you're discussing film, then you have a specific theory that was born or originated from film studies itself. No, film studies uh, has borrowed many approaches that has existed before film studies ever existed. So there's a mix of semiotics, Marxism, and several other film theories, including post-structuralism, social theory, and other kind of theories. And of course, semiotics here is important because it could be said that it's the basic of how we can interpret the visuals, because without the theory or knowledge about interpreting visuals, then it's difficult to analyze film, because film is visual. So how to understand or to interpret visuals, then we need semiotics as the basic, one of the basic theory we can use. So in other words, analyzing film through cultural studies approach, or cultural studies film theory, is a form of film theory or study in which cultural practices are examined in relation to their impact on film and film class. It is also defined as an interdisciplinary field in which film is studied in relation to the cultural values and meanings that are established in the representations of a film's characters, plots, and other elements. So there are several keywords, like first, interdisciplinary field. It means that you cannot discuss cultural film through cultural studies without any approach. So you have to use a different approach outside film. That's why it is interdisciplinary. It's not only about analyzing film, but it's about analyzing film using other theories outside the film itself, and that's why it's called interdisciplinary. And then the second keyword is cultural values. So when you discuss film in relation to cultural studies, you have to find prominent cultural values. What kind of cultural values, what kind of power relation existed in the film. And also the third keyword is the representation through film aspect. What are film aspects? Well, the characters, the theme, the plot, and other elements are that are specifically film. So you have to take that aspects to be discussed, because if you do not include them, then you are not doing film studies. Because doing film studies means that you include all those aspects, or any of those aspects of film, like characters, plots, mise-en-scene, cinematography, and so on. Okay, I will next show you some example of cultural studies analysis on film that I personally has published before. So these are some of my research that are interdisciplinary in nature, and I'm using film as the object, and I look at cultural values and also some topics. For example, the first one I use gender or feminism approach. The first one I discuss several horror films that has a character of final girls. Final girls are characters in the movie that, in the horror movie especially, uh, which which refers to last girl standing. So maybe you have seen lots of horror movies where at the end the only survivor is a female character, and that is called the final girls who defeated the evil. So the first movie, I discussed some movies, not only one. I discussed the topic of final girls in some of Indonesian contemporary horror films. And then the second one, still about gender, I discussed the topic of gender performativity in Mantovani's film titled Air Terjun Pengantin. And then I also discuss, still about gender, female body horror in categories film by Joko Anwar. And then I discuss another three Joko Anwar film, and I relate them with the feminist theory, yeah, radical feminist theories. And these are all example of how uh, film is discussed through cultural studies, because I discuss a lot of power relation between the patriarchal and also the female characters in the movies. So let's see if we can click on one of the paper. Okay, I think you can uh, Google the title yourself, and you can download all the papers that I mentioned here. It is open and available if you Google them. And then another example where I use historical cultural approach. The first one is a movie, a documentary movies titled Jiro Dreams of Sushi. So I'm discussing cultural values, Japanese cultural values called shokunin, and how these shokunin values is represented in the movie Jiro Dreams of Sushi. So a story about this old man who has excelled in making sushi, and he's so disciplined and uh, try to make the best sushi in the world by being very disciplined, and always trying to better his skill in making sushi. So it's a quite interesting film for me. You probably should check it. And then the second films I discussed, the movie Cabaukan, and I look at the movie from an aspect of cultural representation of Chinese Indonesian. So I'm looking at the film from the ethnicity point of view, yeah, ethnicities of Chinese Indonesian ethnicity in the context of spice trading and nationalism. And then I also discuss ethnicity still. I discuss some movies produced, directed by Ernest Prakasa, or where he also played as a character from the movie Ngenest, Cek Toko Sebelah, Susah Sinyal, and the last one is Tip and Pencil. So I'm looking at how Chinese Indonesians trying to find their way, find their positions in the world or in the place where they are not accepted or seen as a different group of people, not Indonesian. And I try to reveal how Ernest Prakasa position the Chinese Indonesian and introduce a different kind of representation of Chinese Indonesian through his films. And I also did some research by using philosophical and also psychological approach. For example, the first one, historical trauma and the discourse of Indonesianness in contemporary Indonesian horror films. And then the second one, this is not film, but the second one is from a drama called String Pearls or The Fiend of Fleet Street, and I discussed the utilitarianism philosophy in that drama. And then the third one is a thesis of my student, where together with her, I published this thesis into a journal, and she discussed the movie Black Swan by Darren Aronofsky, and she looks at the female protagonist portrayal in relation to the psychoanalytic theory of personality and defense mechanism. And then another students of mine also discuss Birdman, or the unexpected virtue of ignorance, using existential crisis through conflict. So all of these papers can be downloaded if you just type them and Google them. You can find it and you read it as a reference to understand cultural studies analysis in film. So I want to go back to this one film that I mentioned, Jiro Dream of Sushi. So the object is a documentary titled Jiro Dreams of Sushi by David Gale. And the circuit of culture that I discussed is production and consumption. So remember, every time you discuss film through cultural studies, you have to at least put one or two element of circuit of culture. And in this movie, I discussed two, the production and the consumption. And this article has been published in journal Lingua Cultura number 17 in 2023. And next I will show you the clip of this film.
仕事しててこの年になって完璧だとは思っていないからね。
親さんまだ悔いがあるからおかしいよ。で、せがれがかわいそうだから早く譲ってあげてって。
ずっとまあ親さんがやっていければそれでいいんですけれども、そうはいかないですから、いつかは交代しなきゃいけないですから。
そこまで頂上まで行けば完璧かも分かんないけど、じゃあこの頂上はどこかっていうと分かんないわけですよ。
抜いてやっと並んだ。そのぐらいやっぱり親父の影響って本当に。
やりたが夢だったっていうのがありますよ。こうやったらいいんじゃないって夢でしょあれ。やるってことは非常にいいことじゃないかなと思います。
うちはもう二郎さんの亡霊がもうそこら中にあるから。
好きにならなきゃダメですよ。それ自分の仕事に惚れなきゃダメなんですよ。
Okay, so that is the clip of the documentary, and these are the three films that I discussed in my analysis called Radical Feminist Heroines, Gender Philosophy in Joko Anwar's three films. So I discussed the movie Satan Slaves, A Copy of My Mind, and also Empathy Gore. So, to do film analysis in the context of CS, it means that the analysis should always be related to topic or issues outside the film. So the analysis is not only about identifying or explaining what is visually seen on the film, but how those shots or visuals on the film relate to the circuit of culture. So you have to connect it with something outside the film, yeah, cultural values or whatever that you can find in the films, and you have to then connect it with the one of the circuit of culture element. And as a guide, these are things to include when you discuss or analyze film through cultural studies approach. You have to analyze the screenshots, which means that you have to analyze the cinematography, or it means the camera work, how the camera is placed, the size, the distance, the movement of the camera, and also the mise-en-scène, which is everything you see on the screen and everything you hear on the screen that is included in mise-en-scène. And the screenshot of your choice has to be used sparsely. So let's say you discuss film, and then you have to write 10 pages, but then you use like 10 screenshots. That's too much, yeah, too many. So use sparsely the screenshot. Focus only on visuals or screenshots that support your analysis. So let's say you want to discuss representation of Chinese, Indonesian, or certain ethnicity in a film. So maybe you just choose several screenshots that are showing them in different contexts, for example, or in a different scene, and analyze them. So not too many screenshots. And then after that, you will make an interpretive analysis supported by the screenshot that you chose. And after that, find supporting references from academic journals and other sources to strengthen your argument or your interpretation about what you think the movie is about. Okay, so the next thing I want to give you an assignment so that you can practice it yourself, but not a full analysis. So this is a simple assignment for you to do and present next week. So you will be presenting in groups, 2 to 3 students per group max. And what you should do is first, you basically just make a brief outline of a film studies analysis through film. So not a thorough detailed analysis, but just a brief outline. So outline means that's just points of analysis. So in the outline, please state or narrate the following. So what do you think the title will be if you are doing the analysis? So possible title, and then what circuit of culture that you think can be used to analyze that film, and then provide also a very short synopsis of a film. And the fourth part is the most important, a short analysis of the film plus the screenshot, of course. So when you discuss film, you cannot separate the screenshot, because people need to visualize what you mean by saying this. So they need to see the screenshot, and then you analyze the screenshot. So this is the core of the outline, the short analysis of the film, and then close by the conclusion, and to be presented on June 10th to 2026. I will give you an example of how you should do it. Okay, for example, this is taken from one of the theses. So the thesis that has been published is using Parasites movie by Bong Joon-ho, and this is the possible title, yeah, analysis of class identity in Bong Joon-ho's Parasite. So it definitely, the title already referred to one of the culture or circuit of culture, which is identity. So the second part, this question is mention one of the elements, which is identity in the second one, and then the third one is the synopsis of the movie Parasite in this example. And then short analysis, it means that you have to do or examine the cinematography and the mise-en-scène. And then after that, you come up with a conclusion. For example, in this case, the film shows that class identity is fixed and hard to change. It is also defined by non-economic signs such as smell, which the wealthy use to maintain their boundaries. The film's cinematography and mise-en-scène effectively support the stark contrast of identity between the two families. So this is the very short conclusion of the discussion. And I will show you how the analysis through mise-en-scène is like. For example, from the mise-en-scène, the writer provides two screenshots with showing two different settings or homes. The first one on the top is the home of the Kim family, and then the second one is Park family. So the mise-en-scène shows a stark contrast. So here the Kims are situated in their semi-basement apartment, which is lower than the street level, and visually the home or the house is cluttered and there's a very poor lighting, and it is very contrast to the minimalist sunlit home of the Park family, which is seen in the second screenshot on the bottom. So this setting immediately signals their lower class identity. One, defined by environmental hardship and economic constraint. And then from mise-en-scène aspect, there's also the use of shallow space and tight framing. Shallow space can be seen on the top screenshot, where we can see that the Kim families is sitting down together, and as you can see, this framing is so tight so that they seem to not be able to move around freely, because they are framed in such a way so they have to squat down and sit on the floor, and then the framing is so, yeah, it is called tight framing, so they cannot move around. It is compared with the second one, it's loose framing, where we can see someone walking in that scene, and then we can see how spacious the area is. So this is loose framing. So the use of framing is used also to emphasize the different identity. Yeah. So it is to emphasize their inability to escape their poor condition on the top screenshot. And then from cinematography, also there's a use of floor level camera placement to emphasize or symbolize their position as the lowest in the social hierarchy. So because they are sitting down, crouching, or yeah, not sitting or not standing up. So this use of camera level also used to emphasize the identity of this lower class. So these two screenshots is enough to show class identity that is represented or that is shown in the film. Okay, so that is one simple example of how cultural studies approach is applied in a film discussion. So not only you discuss the content, but you try to find something outside the film, which is the class identity, and then the film itself, you have to take screenshots and then choose one or two screenshots that can represent what you want to say about your topic. Yeah, in this case, these two screenshots are used to emphasize the gap between the lower class and the upper class people in Korea at that time. All right, so that's a short introduction of cultural studies in film, and hopefully you can start doing short analysis and about the film that you can analyze. You can choose any film, but make sure that when you choose a film, make sure that the film has a certain topic that you want to discuss. Let's say you want to discuss about gender, so you have to find a film that has a strong gender issue, because if you choose film that has no gender issue but you want to discuss gender, then it's quite difficult to find the data. Yeah, so the first thing first is to choose a film, and then what topic is most prominent in that film, what the most significant issue that the film wants to raise, and probably from there you can decide, oh, okay, I want to discuss this film through this issue because it is so strong in this issue, and then you find theory, and after that you choose screenshot from a film that best exemplify your topic. After that you do analysis through cinematography and mise-en-scène, although most of you haven't been are not in the film class, but you can do a very simple analysis by using probably semiotics or other theories. And also, of course, what one thing that you should not do is to use AI. I need you to use your HI, or human intelligence, not artificial, because I'd like you to see the original ideas that come from your own brain. So prevent yourself from using AI in the discussion or analysis, because it will help you to grow your mind, critical thinking, and also creativity. Yeah, because there's a lot of discussion about the AI will make people stupid. Yeah, so try as best as you can not to depend on AI for this kind of analysis. All right, so if you have any question, you can message me, or you can email me if you are not sure, or if there's something that is unclear for the assignment. Okay, thank you very much for your attention. I'll see you during the presentation.